In a class full of quarterbacks who struggle to process in the pocket and throw with anticipation, Rourke's experience stands out and gives him an edge against his competition. I just feel we keep seeing Dart pull this trick where we see a player who struggles against good competition, but will bring back some fans thanks to his big statistical performances. What has been really good to see is his separation and route running return to form. I don't think Singer will be a huge steal in the draft, but I do think he'll go on to have a good NFL career as a contributor for an NFL team. In the NFL, we've recently seen Kane On go from a solid role player to a focal point of an offense due to the injury to Chris Godwin, so it'll be interesting to see if Ferguson can show more star potential if he needs to step up with Tez Johnson set to miss some time. Hey y'all, sorry for the break in making these watch list videos, but happy to be back. This week I'll be covering my usual 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 2 tight ends to watch this coming weekend in college football. Just as before, I have the players included in the video, but if you'd prefer to read through the players instead, you can read them in the Substack article in the description. You can also subscribe to my Substack if you want to keep up with the written articles, and you can subscribe to this channel if you want to stay up to date on the videos. So let's get back to the watch list for this weekend. Kicking things off with quarterbacks, I'll be watching Kurtis Rourke from Indiana. Rourke is an older prospect but has been a riser as he's been leading undefeated Indiana to an incredible season. While some might doubt Rourke due to not having as difficult of a schedule as some of the other quarterback prospects, I think we need to start to recognize what he's doing. Rourke has looked great in his tougher matchups this year and showed no signs of being a quarterback who's only capable of beating up on lesser opponents, which honestly is a bit of a funny thing to think of as Indiana being the lesser team based on how the last few years have gone. But anyways, Rourke has had some of the best ball placement and anticipation there is in this class. He definitely is limited from a mobility standpoint, but he can absolutely win from the pocket. In a class full of quarterbacks who struggle to process in the pocket and throw with anticipation, Rourke's experience stands out and gives him an edge against his competition. That experience will need to come in handy in the team's toughest matchup of the season against Michigan. While Michigan isn't the championship team they were last year, they still have a formidable defense that can give Rourke and the Indiana offense some trouble. So be sure to check out Kurtis Rourke take on Michigan this Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern and see if Rourke can continue to rise up rankings. The other quarterback I'll be watching this weekend is Jaxson Dart from Ole Miss. Dart performance-wise has been all over the place this past month. He struggled against Kentucky, South Carolina, and then LSU in consecutive weeks, but then looked good against Oklahoma, and then looked fantastic against Arkansas. I just feel we keep seeing Dart pull this trick where we see a player who struggles against good competition, but will bring back some fans thanks to his big statistical performances. I just feel like we go through this experience with Dart every year, and general consensus usually agrees that he isn't there as a starting NFL quality quarterback by the end of the year, but his sexy stats keep pulling people back in at different points in the season. Personally, if I wasn't clear from my quarterback rankings, which, shameless plug, you can check out with the link that should be on the screen now, I'm likely out on Dart. I've seen Dart struggle too much with progressing past his first reads, and too many times when he looks lost as a processor. I think right now his ceiling is Carson Wentz, but we saw how quickly a player like that can lose his place in the NFL if the scheme isn't there to help carry him, or the team finds another quarterback who can execute the scheme and provide more. As I mentioned, Dart often struggles in big games due to more difficulties getting to his first read, and will likely be tough again this coming weekend when the team takes on Georgia. After putting up disappointing performances against Kentucky, South Carolina, and LSU, a big performance against Georgia may actually give me the buy into Dart a little bit more in the NFL. But if he struggles again, I'm probably going to be petty and be the first to say I told you so. So be sure to check out Dart take on number 3 Georgia this Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern and see if he can finally put it all together against a quality team. Moving to running backs, I'll be watching Devin Neal from Kansas. Neal has put together another quality season so far. I mentioned this in my running back rankings, which again, shameless plug, you can check out with this link that should be on the screen now. But I'm not certain if he has proven too much more compared to last year, which makes it a bit disappointing that he didn't declare for the draft last year. He hasn't been as involved in a receiving game, but still looks like a great receiving back, which could be his calling card in the NFL. Also, he has continued to look like a quality runner despite struggling with some pad level issues, and his ability to handle larger workloads has been a nice sight that should make NFL teams more comfortable trusting him for longer stretches. I still have significant concerns about Neal's pass protection skills, but his burst, hands, and movement skills give him a really good ceiling at his size. While the Kansas offense has been a bit of a mess, Neal's been reliable as ever, and they'll need him to be this coming weekend when the team takes on number 17 Iowa State. Jalen Daniels has also been a bit better these past few weeks, but I think it will still be in the team's best interest to feed Neal. So I'll be interested to see what Neal can do when they take on number 17 Iowa State this Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Keeping with games at 3:30 p.m. and being at home, I'll be watching running back Bhayshul Tuten from Virginia Tech. Tuten looked on track to play last weekend, but was ultimately held out. For awareness, I'm recording this before there are any clear injury updates, but I think he absolutely should be watched if he is playing, so I wanted to include him. I need to include Tuten because he's been so awesome this year and has looked like a complete back with great vision and much more reliable hands. He is primarily getting dump-offs as a receiver, but it still shows that he can be trusted as a safety valve for quarterbacks. I do want to see him trim down on the fumbles, but I'm willing to let that slide if he can put up performances like he did against Boston College and Miami. In a deep running back class, where rankings for players for evaluators will likely be based on preferences or what they want from their players, I think Tuten will be underrated for this draft cycle if he decides to declare. While he lacks elite athleticism, he seems to be one of the most balanced backs in the class and has some of the best balance just keeping it on his feet in the class. So I want to see if he can continue to run with great balance and break through tackles in a difficult matchup against number 23 Clemson this Saturday. I already think he can't continue to be slept on after the Boston College game, but if he puts up another show against Clemson, then I'm hoping most people will start to finally recognize what he's doing and that he belongs with some of the better backs in his class. So be sure to check out Tuten take on number 23 ranked Clemson this Saturday at, you guessed it, 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Moving to wide receiver, I want to include some players who I feel like have been going under the radar this year. So starting with Dorian Singer from Utah. I was a big fan of Dorian Singer when he was at Arizona, and I'm excited to see what he was going to be doing when he went to USC to play with Caleb Williams last year. Unfortunately, it didn't work out very well for either side as they were hoping it would. Fast forward to this year in a fresh start at Utah, and we have a version of Singer who looked closer to what he did at Arizona. Utah's lack of quality passing offense definitely limits him, but he still has been a solid producer for the team. What has been really good to see is his separation and route running return to form. I don't think Singer will be a huge steal in the draft, but I do think he'll go on to have a good NFL career as a contributor for an NFL team. While maybe a little bit too late for Singer, this isn't looking to be a strong receiver class, so he may have a chance to rise depending on how the rest of the season goes, and if Utah ever figures out how to get the ball moving through the air consistently. Either way, this Saturday will be a big test for him when he takes on number 9 ranked BYU in the Holy War game. It'll be a late game, but try to stay up and record the game when they take on BYU this Saturday at 10:15 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to do something really bold here and cover someone in a road game. So in the only road game on this week's list, I'll be watching Nick Nash from San Jose State. Nash is another prospect who may be looked past due to his age, but his production will likely garner some attention. He's currently first in the country in receptions and receiving touchdowns, and second in receiving yards. I do have some concerns if he can keep this up against better competition, since he's typically beating up on low-quality opponents, and he may not have the athleticism to get consistent separation in the NFL. However, his performances earlier this year against Washington State, when he put up 16 receptions for 152 yards and 2 touchdowns, does give some hope for optimism. With not a lot of difficult matchups on San Jose State's schedule, Nash will need to continue to put up monster performances to quiet the stat-padding crowd. While Oregon State isn't the toughest of an opponent, it's still a step above some of the other teams Nash has played this year. So be sure to see if Nash can replicate his performance against a better team this coming Saturday when he travels to take on Oregon State at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Finishing things out with tight ends, I'll be watching Terrance Ferguson from Oregon. Ferguson returned after missing 2 games after a appendectomy, which is something I feel like I haven't seen in a college football player in a while, but he returned against Michigan and put up a modest performance. That, unfortunately, has been kind of the story for Ferguson, though, this season, and really for his career. He's been solid, but not overly remarkable. His versatility and size gives him a clear role in any NFL offense, but I just worry how much of a contributor he's capable of being in the NFL. He hasn't been the most productive in college due to Oregon's scheme, but I still feel like he should be capable of more. In the NFL, we've recently seen Kane On go from a solid role player to a focal point of an offense due to the injury to Chris Godwin, so it'll be interesting to see if Ferguson can show more star potential if he needs to step up with Tez Johnson set to miss some time. While Johnson's and Ferguson's roles aren't the same, I'll still be watching Ferguson this weekend to see if he can become a big riser or just be more of the same. So be sure to check him out this Saturday when he takes on Maryland at 7 p.m. Eastern. For the final player, I'll be watching Eli Stowers from Vanderbilt. Stowers is an interesting prospect as he was originally a quarterback but made the conversion to tight end in college. So far he's looked pretty promising as a receiving tight end and putting up some quality numbers even against quality opponents. He definitely is still getting used to the position, and between his size and playing a little less than 25% of his snaps in line, is more of a glorified slot player right now. However, he does look like an interesting project if a team is creative enough to know how to use him or are willing to deal with the growing pains. It also helps that there's a number of tight ends in this class who are more slot receiver than true tight ends, so Stowers at least isn't an outlier. However, he will need to keep up his production if he doesn't want to be overlooked in his class. So be sure to check out how Stowers does when he takes on South Carolina this Saturday at 3:15 p.m. Eastern to see if he can keep up the quality production and continue to be a riser. And that does it for week 11. I'm hoping to go back to doing these on a regular basis, but to make sure you don't miss any future watch lists and to keep up with players you should be watching, be sure to subscribe. While you're at it, like the video as it would help the channel and the series grow thanks to you. As always, if you want the written forms or the basics of the players, you can again subscribe to my Substack. But thank you all and see you all next time.